To quote Charles Dickens and David Copperfield, misquote Charles Dickens and David Copperfield, annual income £20, annual expenditure £19.06, result happiness. Annual income £20, annual expenditure £19.16. Sorry. Annual income £20, annual expenditure £20.06, result misery. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a few more moments to go through a number of issues within the bill, or as you may prefer to have them called today, the general principles of the bill, and I'd like to start with Part 1. Not only does the bill overhaul benefits, for it wipes many of them out completely and starts from scratch with the introduction of universal credit. The scrapping of so many central benefits, such as income support and child tax credits, could, in theory, make what has always been a complex field more straightforward. The Department of Work and Pensions tell us, and I feel we have no choice but to listen to them, as the Department of Social Development here is yet to demonstrate a shred of independent thought, that universal credit's overall objective is to address poverty by tackling worklessness and benefit dependency. I would agree with the Prime Minister, as probably everyone else in this Assembly would, when he says that people should always be better off in work. It is on this point that I'd also like to briefly make reference to the invisible half of welfare reform. You don't represent a constituency like East Belfast, much like anywhere else in Northern Ireland, I assume, and not frequently hear of the concerns of those people who go out to work day after day and manage, but only just to pay their bills, and do so without so much as a thank you from the government, never mind being given support. People are struggling out there. We can express shock and real distress at occasional large job losses, and the executive departments can call all the economic summits they like, but all the while it makes little immediate impact on the ordinary man or the ordinary woman who is receiving no support from the government. There is effectively as much spent in Northern Ireland on social security as there is on our health service. I don't know many working people who would begrudge anyone their entitlements, but they do rightly need reassurance from us here and the Department that no one is taking the system for a ride. This welfare bill should be as much about equality for them as it is to ensure provision for those who will benefit from it. Nevertheless, getting back to the issue of universal credit, I suppose the benefit system of late has come to reflect the stereotype of government: complex, unwieldy, intolerant to learn from its own mistakes. At present, the welfare system has more than 30 benefits, each with their own rules and criteria. I actually think that the idea of a single benefit is preferable. Without wanting to go into too much depth, I have concern about a number of issues that surround universal credit. You wouldn't think by reading Part 1 of this bill that it is effectively laying in stone a complete overhaul of our benefits system. Despite the fact that this bill runs to 133 clauses, 7 parts and 12 schedules, it is really, in many ways, purely enabling legislation. It broadly lays out the parameters of reform, and the real detail, the hardest-hitting proposals, the deepest-cutting thrusts, will actually come through the form of the regulations. The most concerning aspect for me of this whole debate is that this Assembly is being asked to walk blindly into the unknown. I recognise the overall regulations are still out to consultation, but we are being expected to approve the creation of a new benefit without even knowing the amount of money and the rates of money that will be paid under it. There has been a mountain of research conducted over recent months on universal credit. We are all aware of the frequently quoted findings from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, which stated that welfare reform will initially affect all parts of Northern Ireland society equally, but will increasingly go on to have a harder impact on those on lower incomes. I would like to go a little further on that point. Save the Children, for example, have stated that single parents working longer hours and low pay will be substantially worse off under universal credit. It's hardly the new wonderful benefit that some of us will have us believe. I heard the Minister state that the introduction of universal credit will lift 10,000 children out of poverty. But I would ask them, how many children will it push over the edge and into poverty? Another point we must remember is that the latest figures from Households Below Average Income measure, which shows 21% of children in Northern Ireland were living in relative poverty. The fact that there are 50,000 children living in what is termed as severe poverty is a shocking statistic, and one that we all should be truly ashamed of. I am aware that the previous programme for government contained a severe child poverty target, and the Executive agreed a definition. However, the current programme for government appears to have dropped such a target. Why? To me, it looked like an admission of defeat before even trying. Of course, it's no surprise that even when there are government targets as vague and unbinding as they are, just like there are government targets to reduce fuel poverty in Northern Ireland, this Executive appears blasé about missing them. It's important that we remember that more than half the children currently designated as being in poverty are in families where there is a parent in work. Because of the fact that the bill we have before us today is seemingly just a copy of the one debated in Parliament at the beginning of the year, I am disappointed that the Minister will have not been able to put forward a view and ask it to be taken into account that Northern Ireland is completely lacking in a fully operational childcare infrastructure here, and that is something which I respectfully suggest needs addressed. Yet, this major factor, I see Northern Ireland's lone parents in particular facing a disproportionate share of pain through changes to universal credit and additional conditionality and sanctions. Another issue, while still to be laid out in public, one of the many, is to be a major shift in the actual payments of benefits. For example, I have concerns about the frequency of benefits. The coalition government have often stated their idyllic vision of monthly payments, helping people to budget more appropriately and to adapt to working conditions more smoothly. There's one small difference in Northern Ireland, however. Even for those of us lucky enough to enjoy work, the majority still do not get paid monthly. Just taking a very simplistic example, if a household gets their monthly entitlement and within the first week they are forced by circumstance to spend a significant amount of it filling an oil tank, how does the department propose that that family will manage for the remainder of the month? Now, the cynical observer may say that this particular family should have demonstrated more sense than to spend too much on one particular utility. But I would make the point that if the same observer realised the trauma that this family will no doubt have previously went through about deciding whether they should enjoy the benefits of heat or of food, I am sure that they could understand why peace of mind on this particular issue may be preferred. I admit it's an unsophisticated case, but it is one which I am sure will be encountered far too often if monthly payments are forced upon the system here. This is the first issue which the Ulster Unionist Party will be seeking to see reversed, and one which we hope the Department will be able to demonstrate some of the much talked about flexibility. I have also concerns about the regulations flowing from this bill, which will dictate that payments go only to one single recipient in a household. Where a couple make a joint claim, they will have to decide who receives the single payment. Very few of us know exactly what goes on behind the closed doors of any homes, apart from our own. Given total control over what may be, in some cases, a significant amount of money to a single individual, would to me raise concerns about the welfare and vulnerability of other persons in the same household, but also dependent on the same money. I would ask the Minister to detail what research has been done, either here or across the water, to determine how in households where there may be domestic violence and a fair, reasonable method of payment can be retained. I accept that this again may be a hypothetical issue, but it's one which the Department must surely be considering. Of course, then there is the issue about direct payments, and one which I believe has taken such prominence during the discussion on welfare reform, because to me anyway it makes absolutely no sense at all. Again, the government may look towards the ideal scenario of a family on universal credit, hurriedly searching for jobs, budgeting well with their monthly payments, and always making sure to keep enough aside to pay the rent. That is idealism, and unfortunately, it very seldom imitates reality. The Consumer Council have interesting research which shows that Northern Ireland comes bottom of the UK League of Financial Capability. A damning indictment. Indeed, they found that 1 in 5 people here feel it is not important to keep up to date with financial matters. Direct payments are genuinely an issue that baffles me. No one, and I mean no one, with any sense wants this apart from officials. I could maybe understand if tenants were crying out for this to be built into the bill and the regulations, but they're not. In fact, for those tenants who would like to avail of direct payments, the option is already there. Very few take it up. The Department of Work and Pensions, and maybe even the Department of Social Development, might think that empowering people with the responsibility to pay their rent to their landlords may be a positive step. But to me, forcing such a move is totally contradictory to what any responsible government should even be considering doing. Over the last months, I have heard countless welfare advocacy organisations pleading for direct payments to be avoided. They fear that personal debt will rocket, that for many rent arrears will spiral out of control, and homelessness may then unfortunately become an even greater problem. On top of this, we must also be aware of social and private landlords, the latter being a group of people who I am not afraid to criticise when things go wrong. But in this case, they will be faced with significantly reduced financial security that comes from direct payments. For the housing associations, which this current executive is dependent upon to meet housing targets, they have been able, up to now, to secure borrowings at highly competitive rates, maximising their capital resources and subsequently delivering a good deal for the taxpayer. Any change to the current system could dramatically scale back the availability of necessary private finance. The Minister will no doubt be aware of the 5 demonstration projects which the Department of Work and Pensions have announced in order to prepare for these changes. These demonstration projects will run from June 2012 to June 2013. Can the Minister detail whether Northern Ireland will be running similar demonstration projects? And if not, why not? I will make one last point on direct payments and then move on. Tenants already do avail of direct payments, and in some cases up to 20% of tenants do, and that is welcome. Therefore, when the Minister inevitably stands up later and makes excuses about IT systems not being capable, or gives explanations about IT systems not being capable, he may even be able to use the same excuses of DWP about personal responsibility. Either way, I would urge him on this particular issue to show some compassion for the people that he is charged with looking after. There's a very simple answer to this. Rather than simply direct payments or none, why can't the Department offer a choice? And if people continue to insist on it, the Department could gently nudge people towards accepting and taking up responsibility if they believe they can handle it.